My son came home to help my wife. Then I found the family chat called After Mom Moves. The Thanksgiving toast that ended my relationship with my son began with him lifting a glass and saying, "Family is the people who show up when things get hard." My wife smiled at him, as if he had just said something beautiful. She had forgotten what day it was twice that afternoon, but she still remembered that Derek was her boy. I sat across from him with a printed bank statement folded inside my sweater pocket and tried not to look at the line, showing that the care fund I had built for my wife had fallen from $286,000. $47,300. My daughter Beatrice was beside me, pale and silent, because she had seen the private message Derek sent his girlfriend 3 nights earlier. "Dad will fight selling the house, but once Mom moves to memory care, he'll fold. She won't know the difference by spring anyway." Then another message. "We can use my share to stabilize the shop." Derek thought the worst thing he had done was take money he planned to replace. He did not know I had also read the message where he called me too exhausted to notice anything. He did not know I had spent the previous 48 hours protecting Irene's care and making sure nobody could move another dollar without me. And he definitely did not know that before dessert, I was going to ask him one question in front of the whole family. "Son, when did your mother's illness become your business plan?" My name is Walter Benson. I was 74 when this happened, and I live in Middleton, Wisconsin, just west of Madison, in the same red brick colonial where my wife Irene and I raised our 2 children. I spent 36 years working for the city's water and electrical department, eventually supervising maintenance crews that kept pumps, generators, and emergency systems running through Wisconsin winters. It was not glamorous work, but it was honest, steady, and good enough to pay off our house, educate our children, and build a retirement account large enough that I believed old age would be ordinary. I pictured fishing in northern Wisconsin, Irene complaining about my tomatoes, grandchildren leaving fingerprints on every clean window, and maybe one long trip to Italy because Irene had been saying someday since 1987. Dementia was not part of that picture. Irene was 67 when a neurologist finally gave a name to what we had both been pretending not to see. She had started losing words first, then appointments. Then she once drove to the grocery store and called me crying because she could not remember why she was in the parking lot. The diagnosis was Alzheimer's disease, early but progressing. I remember driving home from the clinic while Irene stared out the passenger window at snowbanks and bare trees. At one red light, she reached over and put her hand on mine. "You look more scared than I feel," she said. "One of us has to be sensible." That was Irene. Even on the day her own future changed shape, she found a way to comfort me. We had been married 43 years. She had been a public school art teacher, the kind who remembered which kid needed extra lunch money and which kid pretended not to care about winning a ribbon. She was gentler than I was, and usually right about people long before I caught up. The one person we had disagreed about for years was our son Derek. Derek was 41, charming, energetic, and permanently one good idea away from the life he believed he deserved. He had worked for contractors, sold flooring, managed a home remodeling crew, then started a custom cabinet business outside Milwaukee. He was talented with his hands and terrible with money. A good month convinced him he had solved his life. A bad month became somebody else's fault. I had bailed him out twice in his 30s and regretted both times. Irene never did. "He's not asking because he's lazy," she would tell me. "He's asking because he still thinks home is safe." I used to answer, "Home should be safe, not endless." Our daughter Beatrice was 38 and lived 15 minutes away in Verona with her husband Patrick and their 2 children. She worked as a middle school counselor. Beatrice had inherited Irene's patience and my suspicion of excuses, which meant she could listen compassionately while still asking the question everybody else was avoiding. She and Derek loved each other, but their relationship had always carried an old imbalance. Derek was the child who had crises. Beatrice was the child who handled them. When Derek's truck broke down, Irene called Beatrice to see if she could lend him hers. When Derek forgot our anniversary dinner, Irene told Beatrice not to mention it because he was under pressure. When Beatrice needed help after the birth of her second child, Derek sent flowers and arrived 6 days later with a story about a supplier problem. Beatrice never made a war out of those things. That made them easier for the rest of us to ignore. 3 days after Irene's diagnosis, Derek called me. "I'm coming home," he said. "Not moving in forever, just for a while. You cannot do this alone." I told him his business needed him. He said, "Mom needs me more." I cried after we hung up. I am not proud of how quickly relief turned me into a believer. For the next year and a half, Derek became the son Irene had always insisted was hiding underneath the unfinished plans. He rented a small apartment in Madison, drove over 4 or 5 days a week, took Irene to appointments when I was exhausted, picked up prescriptions, fixed meals, mowed the lawn, and learned how to redirect her gently when she became confused. On bad evenings, when Irene accused me of hiding her mother from her even though her mother had been dead for 20 years, Derek could sometimes get her laughing within 5 minutes. I thank God for him. I told friends, my son came home when it counted. I said it so often I turned it into a fact nobody was allowed to question. Caregiving changed me slowly. It is difficult to explain to someone who has not lived it. You do not wake up one morning and become exhausted. Your life simply loses edges. Breakfast becomes medication. Noon becomes a doctor call. Night becomes listening for footsteps, because the woman you love may wake convinced she needs to catch a bus to a school where she has not taught in 12 years. You stop leaving the house unless someone else is there. You eat standing up. You learn which lie is kinder than the truth. Your mother is gone, can cause fresh grief every hour, so sometimes you say, she'll call tomorrow. By the second year, I had lost 15 pounds and started forgetting ordinary things myself. One month, I paid the gas bill twice and forgot the internet entirely. Derek noticed. Dad, let me handle the household accounts, he said. Not everything. Just bills and mom's care expenses. You're carrying too much. I resisted at first. He did not pressure me. That was part of why I trusted him. He waited 2 weeks, then brought it up after a night when Irene wandered into the garage at 3 a.m. looking for her classroom. I had slept maybe 90 minutes. Give me the passwords, he said. I'll set up a separate care account and keep everything organized. Groceries, aids, prescriptions, house repairs. You approve anything big. It sounded responsible. Beatrice had suggested hiring a professional bookkeeper, but I said there was no reason to pay a stranger when Derek was willing to help. She looked at me for a moment and said, okay, Dad, just make sure you still look at the statements. I worked 36 years for the city, I said. I'm not senile. She immediately apologized. I wish I had heard the concern instead of the insult I imagined. We moved $286,000 of our retirement savings into a separate account I mentally labeled Irene's future. If I died first, that money would pay for in-home help, memory care, whatever she needed. Derek had online access so he could pay bills and reimburse himself when he picked up groceries or prescriptions. I told him if his business suffered because he was helping us, we could discuss a reasonable monthly amount. He refused. You're my parents, he said. I'm not billing you. That sentence would replay in my head later until I hated the sound of it. For almost a year, the arrangement seemed perfect. Derek sent me simple monthly summaries. I barely read them. Care aid, $1,840. Pharmacy, $612. Home maintenance, $420. Groceries, $690. Ordinary numbers. I saw the total and moved on. He also became more involved in decisions about the house. He suggested we install a walk-in shower for Irene. Good idea. He added locks high on the exterior doors after she wandered once. Good idea. He replaced the back steps with a safer ramp. Good idea. Somewhere between good ideas, he began speaking as if he were not helping with the house but managing it. We need to get rid of this old dining set, he said one Saturday. It's too big for this room. Your mother picked that table. Mom doesn't care about furniture anymore. I looked at him sharply. I care. He backed off. Fine. I'm just trying to make things easier. Another time he suggested I convert the downstairs den into a bedroom and stop using the second floor. Eventually you'll have to think about selling, he said. This place is too much for one person. I am not one person. He looked toward the living room where Irene was asleep. You know what I mean. I did know what he meant, and I hated him for meaning it before I was ready. Then I hated myself because he was probably right. That is the confusion of caregiving. The people helping you can say true things in cruel ways, and you may still need the truth. Beatrice remained more cautious. She came every Sunday with Patrick and the kids, brought meals, sat with Irene so I could nap, and never once tried to rearrange the house. She asked how I was doing and waited for an answer. That sounds small until you realize almost everyone else asked about Irene first. I began depending on her emotionally while depending on Derek practically. I told myself both children were finally doing exactly what family should do. The first crack appeared in August, 17 months after Derek began handling the care account. Beatrice was helping me upload an insurance form on my laptop because I could not remember where Derek had stored the login. An email notification appeared from the bank. Transfer completed. $6,800 to D. Benson. She looked at it, then at me. Is that for something? I said probably. What? I could not answer. She clicked nothing. Dad called Derek. I did. He answered on the third ring and sounded annoyed. That's reimbursement for the basement work and several months of expenses. What basement work? The moisture repair, shelving, dehumidifier. I told you. He had told me something about dampness. I remembered that much. Why $6,800? Because I paid contractors and materials out of pocket. Send me receipts. Silence. Then a laugh. Seriously? Yes. Dad, I've been running errands for you for a year and a half without asking for a dime. Now you're auditing me over a basement? The word auditing made me feel ashamed. Just send them when you get time. Fine. He hung up. Beatrice said nothing. Don't, I told her. I wasn't going to. Your face was. My face is concerned. The receipts arrived that evening. Some were real. A hardware store. A plumber. A dehumidifier. The total was less than half the transfer. Derek said the rest covered accumulated out-of-pocket care costs and time he had missed from work. I almost challenged him. Then Irene had a terrible night. By morning, the argument felt petty compared with the woman I loved trying to leave the house in slippers because she thought students were waiting for her. That was how Derek survived the first warning. He did not have to manipulate me. The illness did it for him. In September, Beatrice asked me to let Patrick review the account with me. Patrick worked in operations at a local credit union, not in fraud investigation, not as some financial detective. He was simply a careful man who balanced his checkbook to the penny and read every document before signing it. I refused. I'm not humiliating your brother. Beatrice said, looking at your own money isn't humiliating him. He has sacrificed a lot to help us. Then if he deserves to be paid, let's agree on what that is. You think he's stealing? I think nobody should have secret rules around Mom's money. We argued. I accused her of resenting the praise Derek received for coming home. The second the words left my mouth, I wanted them back. Beatrice went very still. You know what, Dad? Maybe I do resent some of it. I opened my mouth, but she continued. I resent that Derek arrives with groceries, and everybody calls him a saint while Patrick and I have been giving up every Sunday for 18 months. And nobody thinks that counts because we didn't make a big announcement. I resent that Mom spent 30 years explaining his failures and calling my reliability independence. But I do not resent him enough to invent missing money. She stood. When you want help, call me. I did not see her for 2 Sundays. Those were long Sundays. Irene asked for her once and then forgot she had asked. I remembered. The real discovery happened in November because Derek got careless in a completely ordinary way. He was supposed to bring Irene to a neurology appointment, but texted that he had a supplier emergency. Beatrice took the afternoon off and came instead. At the clinic, the nurse asked whether we had received the updated estimate for memory care support if Irene's wandering increased. I said no. Beatrice looked at me. Dad, you told me you toured Oak Haven last year? I did. Do you still have the money set aside? Of course. I opened the banking app right there in the waiting room. $47,302.61. I refreshed the screen. Same number. My first thought was that I had opened the wrong account. My second was that maybe Derek had moved the money into something safer. My third was not a thought. It was a physical sensation, as if somebody had opened the floor beneath my chair. Beatrice saw my face. How much? I showed her. She sat down slowly. Dad, there was $286. I know. Maybe he moved it. Call him. I called, no answer. Again, no answer. I called a third time. He texted, in meeting. What's wrong? I wrote, where is Mom's care money? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, we need to talk tonight. Don't panic. If somebody tells you not to panic after more than $200,000 disappears, panic is already late. Beatrice canceled the rest of her afternoon. We drove home and opened the account history together. The money had not vanished in one dramatic theft. It had leaked out in transfers over 17 months. $4,200, $7,000, $500, $3,000, $100, $8,000, $900, $5,000. Some payments matched legitimate household expenses. Many did not. Several went directly to Derek. Others paid his cabinet shop's credit card, a truck lease, rent on his Madison apartment, and a supplier with the same name as one he had complained about at dinner. There were also regular cash withdrawals. Not everything was stolen. That distinction mattered to me even while my hands shook. Derek really had paid bills. He really had bought groceries. He really had cared for Irene. He had simply built a second life underneath the first one and funded it with the money meant for his mother. How much? I asked. Patrick came over after Beatrice called him. He spent 2 hours sorting transactions into categories. I can't know what you authorized, he kept saying. I'm not calling anything theft. I'm showing you what left. We estimated more than $150,000 had gone to Derek or his business beyond obvious care expenses. Another large portion had covered household work without receipts or explanation. I felt sick. Why didn't I look? Beatrice said. Because Mom is sick. That's not an excuse. It's not supposed to be an excuse. It's the reason you trusted help. Then Patrick noticed something else. Several recent transfers referenced advance. Advance on what? He asked. I did not know. That evening, Derek did not come over. He called around 9. Dad, I can explain. Come here. I think we should do this when everyone's calm. Come here. Tomorrow. Derek. He sighed. I borrowed some money. How much? I don't know off the top of my head. Try. Maybe 90,000? I was going to replace it after the shop closed the hotel contract. I closed my eyes. There is no hotel contract. There will be. How much did you take? Dad, I gave up 18 months of my life for you. There it was, not denial, a bill. I offered to pay you. You offered some little caregiver stipend like I'm a teenager mowing the lawn. Then you tell me what your time is worth and we agree. I knew you'd never agree to what I needed. So you took it. I borrowed it. From your mother. Silence. She's my mother too. That doesn't make her care fund your credit line. His voice hardened. You have the house. You have your pension. You act like there's nothing left. That money was for Irene if I die first. You're not dead. I still remember how easily he said it. Come tomorrow, I told him. We'll talk. He said fine and hung up. Beatrice was standing in the doorway. She had heard enough. There's more, she said. I looked at her. What? She held up her phone. Kendra sent me something. Kendra was Derek's girlfriend of 3 years. I had never known whether they were serious because Derek described commitment the way he described business projections, always just ahead. Kendra had contacted Beatrice that evening after Derek told her. Dad finally noticed the transfers. Apparently, she had been told the money was part of an agreed early inheritance. She was now afraid she had helped spend money Derek never had permission to use. She forwarded screenshots from a private message thread between them called After Mom Moves. I hate the name more than I hate the numbers. The first message was from June. Kendra, if Oakhaven happens, what does your dad do? Derek, probably stays in the house for a while. Then B will push him to downsize. Kendra, would he sell? Derek, eventually. He's sentimental, but he's tired. Once Mom isn't there, that house will crush him. Kendra, do you get half? Derek, should. Mom won't know the difference by spring anyway. Dad's the problem. Another message from August. If we can get him to sell while the neighborhood is hot, my share fixes the shop. Kendra replied, that sounds like you're spending inheritance before anyone is gone. Derek, it's not inheritance if the family needs it now. Then the message that made my hands go cold. He's too exhausted to notice anything. I'm the only reason they're still functioning. There were other messages too. Derek complaining about Beatrice being Saint B on Sundays while he did the real work. Derek saying if I became too confused managing Irene, he might have to take over everything for everybody's good. Nothing was a formal plan. Nothing was a signed document. It was worse in a more ordinary way. My son had started treating our decline as an approaching season in his own life. Mom moves. Dad downsizes. House sells. Derek receives share. Business survives. Neat, efficient. Human beings reduced to future events. I sat at my kitchen table until after midnight with Irene asleep upstairs. Beatrice made tea and forgot to drink hers. Patrick finally said, "What do you want to do?" The answer came more clearly than I expected. "Protect your mother." Beatrice looked at me, first, before I asked him why. The next day was Thursday, 1 week before Thanksgiving. I did not call the police. I did not stage some elaborate trap. I went to the bank in person with Patrick and removed Derek's access from the care account. I changed the passwords, redirected statements to paper and email, closed the debit card he used for household purchases, and created a separate checking account with a small monthly balance for Irene's ordinary expenses. Beatrice became backup contact only after I asked her, and she agreed. "I don't want control," she said. "I want transparency." That sentence told me I had chosen correctly. I also spoke to Oakhaven about Irene's likely future costs and learned something painful but relieving. Between my pension, Social Security, long-term care coverage Irene had through her old school district, and the money remaining, we still had options. Not the comfortable cushion I had built, but options. For the first time since seeing $47,302, I took a full breath. Then I changed one more thing. Derek still had a key to the house. I did not change the locks. I texted him, "Do not come into the house unless I am here and invite you. Your key is no longer permission." He called immediately. "Dad, come on. You wanted to talk tomorrow. We'll talk at Thanksgiving." "Thanksgiving? Beatrice and Patrick will be here. Kendra can come if she wants. I want one conversation, once, with everybody hearing the same version." "You're turning this into a public humiliation. 5 people at a dining table is not public. You want B to judge me. I want facts in a room that doesn't move when you leave it." He cursed under his breath. Fine. For the next 6 days, Derek tried every version of himself. First angry, "You have no idea what I sacrificed." Then wounded, "I guess I know what 18 months of helping is worth." Then practical, "The shop can repay a chunk if you give me until February." Then loving, "I'm still your son. Don't let money destroy this family." That last one almost worked. Money had not destroyed the family. It had simply recorded what happened while love was being used as permission. Irene had a surprisingly good Thanksgiving morning. She woke knowing it was a holiday and insisted on wearing a green cardigan she had owned since Beatrice's college graduation. She asked me whether my mother was coming, then remembered my mother had been dead for 30 years and cried as if learning it for the first time. An hour later, she was laughing with the grandchildren over a crooked turkey they had drawn. That is dementia. Grief and joy can live 10 minutes apart and neither remembers the other. Derek arrived at 3 carrying wine and a pumpkin pie from the expensive bakery Irene liked. Kendra came separately. She looked like she had not slept. Derek hugged his mother for a long time. I watched closely, not because I doubted he loved her. That was the part people always wanted to simplify later. He loved his mother. He also took her money. Love does not make people incapable of exploitation. Sometimes it gives them the excuse they use. Beatrice and Patrick arrived with the kids. We ate at 5. Nobody mentioned the account through turkey, stuffing, potatoes, or Irene telling the same story about a disastrous school art fair 3 times. For almost an hour, I was grateful for the performance. Then Derek lifted his wine glass. "I just want to say something." Beatrice went still. He continued, "This has been a hard couple of years, and I know we haven't always handled everything perfectly, but family is the people who show up when things get hard. Whatever else happens, I'm grateful I got to show up for Mom and Dad." Irene smiled. "You always show up," she said. "My good boy." Derek's face changed. Maybe guilt, maybe pain. I do not know. I put down my fork. "Then let's talk about what showing up cost." He stared at me. "Dad, how much money did you take from your mother's care account?" Irene looked between us, confused. Beatrice immediately touched her hand. "Mom, you're okay." Derek said, "Not in front of Mom." "Why not?" "Because she won't understand. She understands enough to call you her good boy." His face flushed. "That's cruel." "No, cruel was letting her praise you while you used the money meant for her care." Kendra whispered, "Derek, just answer." He turned on her. "You already sent them my private messages. What else do you want?" Irene startled at his tone. I said, "Lower your voice." He took a breath. "I borrowed around 100,000. Patrick said nothing. Beatrice said nothing. I asked, "Is that the number?" Probably more with reimbursements. 150? His jaw tightened. Maybe. Did I agree? Not specifically. Did your mother? He laughed in disbelief. Dad, come on. Did she? She can't make those decisions anymore. The room went silent. Irene stared at her plate. I leaned forward. Then explain to me how her inability to consent became your permission. Derek pushed his chair back slightly. I was here every day. I gave up clients. I drove to appointments. I changed mom after accidents. I sat with her while you slept. B comes in on Sundays with a casserole and gets treated like the responsible child while I did the ugly work. Beatrice's eyes filled, but she stayed quiet. I said, you did do the ugly work. He looked almost surprised. Yes, you helped us in ways I will always be grateful for. You deserve support. You deserved rest. You deserve to tell me this was damaging your business and ask us to create a fair arrangement. You would have said no. Maybe. Then you decide whether to keep helping. That's easy for you to say. You weren't the one giving up income. I offered to pay you. Not enough. Then you say the number. You always make everything a negotiation, because money that belongs to someone else requires agreement. He looked at Beatrice. See? This is why I didn't tell him. Beatrice finally spoke. No, you didn't tell him because you knew he would say no to funding your cabinet shop with mom's care money. Stay out of it. You spent 18 months telling everyone I wasn't doing enough. I'm in it. Derek shook his head. You love this. You've always wanted Dad to see me as the screw-up. Beatrice stood halfway, then sat again. I wanted Dad to see me too. That sentence stopped him. She continued, quieter. Do you know how many Sundays Patrick and I canceled things because Dad needed sleep? Do you know how many school meetings I moved? I didn't announce it because helping our parents wasn't a brand. And yes, I resented that you came home, did real work, and suddenly everyone talked like you were the only child who cared. But I still never wanted this. Derek looked away. Kendra began crying silently. I took the screenshots from my pocket. What is after Mom moves? Derek's face hardened. Private venting. You wrote that your mother wouldn't know the difference by spring. Irene looked up when she heard your mother. What won't I know? My heart broke. Beatrice said, nothing, Mom. We're talking about money. Irene nodded as though that explained everything and picked up her fork. I looked back at Derek. You wrote that when she goes to memory care, I'll eventually sell this house. You'll get a share, and your share will fix the shop. Someday this house comes to us anyway. Does it? You have 2 children. That is not ownership. I didn't say it was. You planned around it. People plan. Around other people dying? He slammed his palm lightly on the table. Nobody said dying. After Mom moves. After Dad downsizes. My share. What exactly happens between those sentences? He stared at me. This is insane. No. This is the first sane conversation we've had about it. He stood. Fine. You want the ugly truth? I am 41 years old. I put my business on life support to help you. I'm behind on everything. I watched you sit on a paid-off house, a pension, retirement money, and act like every dollar had to be protected for some future emergency, while the family was drowning right now. I looked toward Irene. She is the emergency. She has insurance. She has a disease that can last 10 years. And what? I'm supposed to lose my whole life because you refuse to use assets? No. You were supposed to tell me you could no longer help. And leave you alone with her? If the alternative was secretly billing her future, yes. His eyes filled then. You don't know what it was like. You're right. That surprised him. I don't know what it was like to be you. I know what it was like to be me. I know what it was like to lie awake terrified I'd die before Irene. And thank God every morning because my son had taken one burden away. I know what it feels like to discover the burden was being carried with one hand while the other was reaching into the account I built so she would be safe. Derek sat down slowly. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Irene reached across the table and touched his wrist. Don't be sad, she said. You're a good boy. Derek started crying. Real crying. He put both hands over his face. I felt no victory. I wanted to walk around the table and hold him the way I had when he was 12. I stayed where I was. Love does not require interrupting every consequence. Kendra spoke next. He told me the transfers were an early inheritance. Derek lowered his hands. Kendra, you did. She looked at me. I believed him. I helped pay rent with some of it. I let him buy equipment because he said the family had agreed. When I saw the balance and realized it was a care account, I sent Beatrice the messages. Derek said, "Thanks for announcing that. I'm done protecting you from the exact thing you said you were entitled to." He stared at her. She stared back. I asked Derek one final question. "If I had never looked, when would you have told me?" He did not answer. "After the hotel contract?" "Nothing." "After Mom moved?" His eyes dropped. "After I sold the house?" "I don't know." "That's the answer," he whispered. "I was going to pay it back." "With what?" "The business. The business you were using the money to keep alive." Silence. I nodded. "Here is what happens now. You no longer handle any account, bill, appointment payment, insurance, or house decision for us. Beatrice is backup contact. But I see every statement. You do not have permission to enter this house without asking. You are not receiving money from me for the shop. You are not planning around this house. And I am not discussing inheritance with either child again while I am alive." He laughed bitterly. "So Bea wins." Beatrice's face collapsed. I said, "If you think this is about winning, you still don't understand what you took. You're choosing her." "No, I'm choosing transparency." "Same thing." Beatrice said, "I don't want the house." He turned toward her. "Easy to say when Dad trusts you." She stood. "I wanted a brother. I wanted a dad who noticed I was helping too. I did not want to become the safe child because you burned the other option down." That silenced him. I looked at both of them. "I failed both of you in different ways." Beatrice stared at me. "Derek too. I spent years calling your crises compassion and her reliability independence. When Derek came home, I was so relieved that I turned his help into a redemption story. I praised him loudly and accepted your help quietly. That was unfair. But my failures as a father do not make taking your mother's care money acceptable." Derek wiped his face. "I know." It was the first clean sentence he had given me. No but, no explanation. Just I know. Thanksgiving ended early. Kendra drove herself home. Derek stayed in the driveway for almost 20 minutes before leaving. Beatrice helped me get Irene ready for bed. Irene asked why everyone had been upset. "Money," I said. She smiled faintly. "People get so silly about money." Then she touched my face. "You look tired, Walt." I nearly broke. "I am." "Come to bed." For one night, she remembered enough to tell me what I had forgotten for 2 years. The next few months were not dramatic. That is important. Derek was not marched out in handcuffs. I did not spend my remaining years trying to destroy my son. I met with a financial counselor and an elder care attorney because I needed to understand what could be recovered and what protections Irene required, but the emotional story mattered more than paperwork. Derek sold a work truck and several expensive pieces of shop equipment. He closed the cabinet business before Christmas and took a project management job with a larger contractor. He began repaying us every month. The amount was modest compared with what was gone. I accepted it because repayment was not the same as forgiveness, and both were allowed to move slowly. Kendra moved out of his apartment. They did not survive the year. She later sent me a letter apologizing for believing a story that was convenient for her. I thanked her. Beatrice and I repaired our own damage too. One Sunday I told her, "I think I like needing you less because it made me feel like I had done something right." She asked what I meant. "Derek needing rescue made me feel like I had failed. You needing nothing made me feel successful." So I kept rewarding the story instead of the child. She cried. "So did I. I did need things," she said. "I just stopped asking." That sentence will stay with me until I die. Patrick helped me create a simple system where every care expense appeared on one shared spreadsheet. Nothing secret, no hero, no villain. Just numbers, dates, receipts, and people talking before decisions. I also hired professional help 3 mornings a week. It felt extravagant. Then I realized I had been willing to risk my health, my marriage, and my children's relationships to avoid paying a trained caregiver by the hour. Pride is expensive in strange ways. Irene entered Oak Haven the following summer after she began wandering at night more frequently and once left the house while I was in the shower. It was the decision I had feared for years. The first day, she cried and asked why I was leaving her at a hotel. I sat in the parking lot afterward and sobbed so hard a staff member came outside to check on me. Derek did not attend move-in day. I had not asked him. Beatrice and Patrick did. 2 weeks later, Derek called. "Can I visit Mom?" I said yes, but I would be there. He accepted that. At Oak Haven, Irene recognized him immediately. "My boy," she said. He sat beside her for almost an hour, while she told him the same story about his first day of kindergarten 4 times. He cried once when she was not looking. On the drive home, he said, "I kept telling myself she wouldn't know the difference." I gripped the wheel. I remember. She knew me. Today she did. What kind of person writes that? I looked at him. A frightened person trying to make an ugly decision sound practical. That's generous. It's not forgiveness. He nodded. I know. That became our relationship for a while. I know. Small acknowledgments instead of grand reconciliation. He kept repaying money. He stopped asking whether I trusted him again. That helped more than apologies. When he came to the house, he asked before opening the refrigerator like a guest. I finally told him he could stop doing that. "I'm not sure what the rules are," he said. "Neither am I. We were learning. I did not rewrite my estate to punish Derek. I did change how I thought about inheritance. The house is not promised to either child. If I need to sell it for Irene's care or my own, I will. If money remains when we are gone, both children may receive something, but neither has a future claim they are allowed to spend today." I told them that at the same time. Beatrice said, "Good." Derek said, "Fair." That one word meant more than I expected. The most surprising lesson was that Derek had not been completely pretending when he cared for us. That would have made the story easier. He had changed Irene's clothes after accidents. He had stayed awake when she was frightened. He had taken me to urgent care once when my blood pressure spiked. He had loved us and exploited us in the same year. People struggle with that truth because they want moral clarity to come with clean categories. Mine did not. Derek was not a stranger who entered the house to rob an old couple. He was my son, tired, resentful, financially desperate, convinced that his sacrifice created a debt we had never agreed to pay. He crossed one boundary, then another, then eventually built a story in which the money was already partly his because someday it might be. That does not excuse him. It does explain why I did not recognize the danger earlier. Harm rarely introduces itself as harm inside a family. It often arrives as entitlement mixed with love. I had my own entitlement too. I believed because Derek was my son, he would keep helping no matter what it cost him. I should have asked what caregiving was doing to his life instead of simply thanking him. I should have hired help earlier. I should have looked at the statements. I should have listened when Beatrice said secret rules around money were dangerous. Those are my mistakes. His choices remain his. Both truths can sit at the same table. Irene is 70 now. Some days she knows me before I enter the room. Other days she thinks I am her older brother. Once she introduced me to a nurse as the boy I'm going to marry. I told the nurse at least the story still ended well. I visit almost every day. Beatrice comes twice a week when she can. Derek visits every other Saturday. He never goes alone, not because I think he would hurt her, but because trust, once broken around a vulnerable person, does not rebuild on sentiment. He understands that now. Last Thanksgiving, we ate in Oak Haven's family room. Irene had mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and half a slice of pumpkin pie. Derek brought flowers. Beatrice brought the grandchildren. Patrick brought a folding card table because the facility table was too small. At some point, Irene looked around and said, "Everybody came." I swallowed hard. "Yes," she smiled. "Good family." Nobody corrected her. Maybe she was right in the only way that mattered that day. A family does not have to be unbroken to be present. But present is not enough by itself. That was the lesson I learned too late. Showing up does not erase what you do while you are there. Sacrifice does not create ownership. Being someone's child does not make their retirement account your inheritance in advance. Being someone's parent does not give you the right to expect unlimited care without asking what it costs. Love without boundaries can become a kind of blindness. And blindness is especially dangerous when someone vulnerable is standing in the middle of it. For most of my life, I thought protecting my family meant building walls around them. A paid-off house, a pension, savings, reliable routines, the certainty that if something went wrong, Walter Benson would figure it out. When Irene became sick, I doubled down. I treated her future like something I could secure with enough money and enough vigilance. Then I became so exhausted that I handed the keys to the person who seemed strongest and stopped checking the doors. I hated myself for that for months. Eventually, Beatrice told me, "Dad, trust was not the crime." She was right. Trust is not stupidity simply because someone abuses it. But trust after evidence is a choice, and that is where self-respect begins. I will never again confuse keeping peace with protecting the people I love. If Derek is angry about a boundary, he can be angry. If Beatrice needs help, I will not assume she is fine because she usually is. If I am exhausted, I will say it before exhaustion makes decisions for me. And if anyone, even my own child, treats Irene's decline like a financial opportunity, they lose access before they lose my love. Those are different things. I still love Derek. I do not trust him with money. I still forgive parts of what happened. I do not pretend it never happened. I still remember the son who came home when his mother got sick. I also remember the man who wrote, "She won't know the difference by spring anyway." Both are true. Growing older has taught me that maturity is often the ability to hold two painful truths without forcing one to erase the other. So tell me honestly, if your adult son spent 18 months helping care for your wife with dementia, then you discovered he had secretly taken more than $100,000 from the fund meant for her future care and was already planning around the sale of your house because he considered part of it his eventual inheritance, would you allow him to rebuild a place in the family after real repayment and accountability? Or would using a vulnerable parent's illness as a financial opportunity cross a line that no apology could ever fully repair?